Welcome, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a true honor to have a legend like you sharing your knowledge with your community. Thank you so much.
Well, I am pretty amazing, but I'm happy to be here. And I love Brazil, and thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate the chance to try to help people.
Great. And Aaron, could you tell us the history behind your biggest success and also how you suppressed the challenges you faced?
Sure. Okay, so let me start with the success that I'm most known for first, which is the Salesforce.com experience. And this is there's a lot of detail in the Esta Previsibilidade book, but a long time ago, it feels like, I'm getting older, in the early 2000s, Salesforce.com was about 150 people, right? Today, Salesforce is 20,000 people and 15 billion in revenue. They're a big company. But when I started there were 150 people and about 25 million in revenue. Now, I had started a business before that, and that business I started failed in Silicon Valley. We had raised millions of dollars in venture capital, and we had a team, and it did not work. And one of the reasons it didn't work, that was depressing. In the book, I write about how on Fridays I would go home and I would drink alcohol and play video games just to forget.
Wow.
Yay. So very painful. But one of the things I learned was, especially myself as the CEO and founder, if I didn't know sales, if I didn't know how to, I could sell naturally, like every entrepreneur here, every entrepreneur has a natural ability to sell in some way. But that's different than being able to sell professionally, where you have salespeople or a sales process or an online process that is a predictable, scalable way to sell. So for me, like if I'm going to start another company, I need to know how to sell in a more professional way. And that's why I went to get a sales job at Salesforce.com. So the first thing I really believe is that to know how to do something, you can't just read about it, you have to do it. And at Salesforce, they had the most junior sales job they had was all they had, answering the phone from people who called the company. And, but I just wanted to learn. I wanted to go there and get paid to learn. So I ended up creating a new kind of sales process that did the outbound prospecting. At Salesforce, it just wasn't working there. And I was able to look at the situation and say, hey, give me some time, give me 3 months to figure out a new way to do outbound prospecting so we could get more appointments, more sales appointments. And it worked. So it was because we could, with this process we created, we called it cold calling 2.0. But through cold emailing and cold calling, we could reach out to companies who didn't know us and set up as many sales appointments as we needed. And so because we could set up very predictable sales appointments, we could generate predictable revenue from those.
Great.
So that ended up, in the first year, we added $1 million in revenue from this. And then we added 7 million from it. And then we added 20 million from it. So we added an extra $100 million pretty quickly just because of this process I created, which is what I wrote about in the Esta Previsibilidade book, or predictable revenue book.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Aaron, how is that applied for e-commerce?
Well, since then, and this was, I left Salesforce a little over 10 years ago. I've worked with all kinds of companies, and I feel like I've learned a lot. And I also have my own company. So I started a company called Predictable Revenue with less than $100, because to me, I know that having money can help, but you don't have to have money to start a company or grow it. And it's doing about $4 million a year right now. And we expect it to grow to 10 million in the next couple of years. So again, so between growing my own company, helping other companies, I feel like I know a lot about why companies don't grow and how to make more money with business, whether you're just selling online or not. And by the way, my mom, who's 73, she has an Amazon business in the United States, and she's doing about $1 million a year in total revenue.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I know. Yes. I mean, and she grew in the last 5 years. It grew from like very little up to now it's about $1 million run rate a year.
Man, that's amazing.
Go mom. Yeah.
Go on. And also, if she needs software to manage her business, we have BigCommerce here.
All right.
Just let us know.
And that most of that was her. I can take a little bit of credit for helping her along the way, maybe 5%. But there's some lessons learned. So the last thing before we get to relevant, I think one other success is I really feel like a big success of mine has been growing this business, the predictable revenue one, while I only work about 20 hours a week and have for like 10 years because I have so many kids. I have 9 children. 9 children? Yep. And man,
so just more 3 and you can start the next, how is the name of the movie? Cheaper the dozen?
Cheaper by the dozen. Yep. So when I hear people say, I don't have time, I don't have money, I have a family. Yeah, it's hard, but there are things you could do to make more money with whatever your constraints are. Because again, I started this business with less than $100 and I need to make money. I worked at salesforce.com, but not early enough to make much money there. Right. So I have lots of big family bills. I'll give you one example. My electricity and water, my utilities per month is about $2,000 US per month. Wow. Which is what, 6,000 reais per month?
I believe right now it's more about 80.
Okay, well, that's per month just for electricity. So I have to make money. So by having to make money, I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't. And a lot of these lessons can be applied to anyone, whether you're selling products online, just to consumers, whether you're trying to sell to businesses as well, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in the United States, it doesn't matter.
Great. And Aaron, you talked a lot of starting a business with no money, but what does it take for owners to make more money?
So the first thing, I always think there's probably 4 points that I think are really the most relevant. So the first is the motivation. And I would conclude with like making the time to do it, sort of priorities, motivation, time. Like, is your mindset, like how badly do you want to make more money? Is it something you'd like to do, or is it something you have to do? So that's probably step one. I know for me, when that changed for me, I made a lot more money, and we can talk about how I did that. The second one is nailing a niche. So this means not trying to sell. It means basically focusing your business on certain kinds of customers who are going to be the best for your business, so that it's more easier to stand out from all the crowd, and it's easier to really create products and services that work for them so they keep coming back for more. So that's number 2. The third one is embracing sales, the idea of selling, the idea of making money.
Great.
Whether it's for you, the owner, or in your team, like whether they're on customer support, chat, anywhere in the company, like embracing selling and making money. And the fourth is predictable lead generation, right? And predictable selling. So like predictable systems. Because if you make money today, but it's not predictable, you're not going to make it tomorrow. So those are 4 really, I think, some of the most important. There's always lots of points, but I think those would be the 4 I would emphasize to your audience as the places that make the biggest difference in making more money with an online business.
And you will say a lot of stay motivated and embrace sales, but you know, we are having a hard time here in Brazil. We are facing a lot of instability and difficult stuff. So how do you stay motivated when you keep falling and falling again?
Yeah. Well, I think first, really understanding that every person, and especially every entrepreneur, has ups and downs. You cannot be successful. You can't make a lot more money without falling down. Because if you're not making mistakes, if you're not falling down, that means you're not doing anything differently. So by definition, you have to make mistakes. How you handle them is important. Right? So if you fall down, you can take that as, oh, I'm failing and I can't get up. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit. This isn't working. Right? So as long as at some point you pick yourself back up, and for some of you that might be 24 hours. For some of you that might be 2 weeks. So as long as you pick yourself back up, you're not failing. When you quit, it's when you're failing. Not quit a certain business. It's more like quitting on a dream. Because sometimes your business may not be the right one, or a product may not be the right one. But don't quit. So for me though, here's what worked for me. And let me give you an example. I use something called what works. The number one thing, if I had to pick one thing that created my success, both in money, because I make almost $1 million a year.
Wow.
Right. And the family's so big, I spend most of it. Right. So I don't live a fancy life. It all goes into my kids and family. But so in making money and my success with my family and having a great marriage and having 9 kids and spending a lot of time with them. By the way, in marriage and kids, you also always have your ups and downs. You always make mistakes. So the number one thing is I would call forcing functions. And I wrote about this in a chapter of the hipercrescimento book. What this means is, let me give you an example for motivation. Most people, probably most of you, and even me a lot, we don't just always want to work all the time on something. We're not always excited about our business. We're not always excited about the things we know we should do. So how do you keep yourself motivated even when you don't want to do something important? So what if you want to get into shape? Do you A, join a gym and start trying to go to the gym? Or B, do you sign up to do a marathon or some sort of athletic race and you tell all your friends you're going to do it? All right? You're going to, when you sign up for something, you tell everyone you're going to do it, you have to do it. So for me, for example, the way that works for me is for telling people, hey, I'm going to write another book or I'm going to have an event. And I announce it even before I know exactly what I'm doing, just because it forces me to do it. In making money, when I got married, I wasn't making that much money. So let's say 9 or 10 years ago. I only got married 8 years ago. So 0 to 9 kids in 8 years, probably through adoption. So that's how I was making, it's called 70,000 US a year, because I didn't have to make much more. I was single. And getting married is like, oh, now I have to make more money. We have kids. We're having kids. It's not an option. I have to make more money. And that like really focused me in my mindset to make more money for my family. Now, for you, whoever's listening, your motivation might be different. You know, for me, my family is the number one motivation that that's why I get up and I do it every day. But it's like understanding yourself. What kind of system can you create so that when you know there's something important, but you don't want to do it, or you want to watch TV, but like, how do you keep yourself on track even when you're not excited about something? Because no matter how much you love your business, some days are just not going to be fun and they're going to be really bad. So how do you, or boring. So how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you motivate yourself to do new things? Because in order to make more money, if you want to double or triple your business, you need to do new things. But a lot of people don't like to do new things for very long, because we say, all right, hey, we're going to start doing an event. We're going to create a new product. And it's exciting at first, but then it doesn't work very well at the beginning. And so we give up. it takes a lot longer than we think to create something and have it translate into being a lot more money with the business. In that journey, which could be months, it could be 2 years, how do we keep ourselves going to push through the boring part and the frustrating part to get to the point where it works?
So it's all about mindset and never give up.
Yeah, and it's knowing yourself. So it's like, for me, I know that I'm not, if I have to do something, I need to create that forcing function, because otherwise, like, my days are so busy with kids. Like, there's no way I could write another book unless what I do is I block out 1 day a week or 2 days a month. And that's just writing. Because if I don't do that, it's not going to happen. So I use my calendar really, I know what's important, and I use public deadlines to make myself do it. And then I block out time on my calendar to make sure I have time to do that thing. And even with 9 kids, and again, I work 20 hours a week. I need to make money, but a long time ago I decided for just working more hours is not the right solution. So by limiting my time, it forces me to really be very smart about my time and my priorities, to do only the things that matter the most. So that's the relationship where, that mindset, I want to do something. How do I make myself do it? Because I don't want to do it today, but I know once it's done, I'll be happy. And then having my calendar ensure it's there to do it.
And have you ever failed even with this state of mind?
Yeah, I mean, how would you define failure? For example, I'll have book deadlines. Like, hey, I'm going to publish a book in July, and I'm not ready, but maybe it happens in August. So it's not so much a failure. It's just making sure that you have a way to push yourself forward, even when you don't want to. Right. And what I'm not saying you should be doing things that just don't feel good. I'm saying is those times when you're bored or tired, or you're just maybe I'll go drinking with my friends. Right. And you could be using that time, whether, again, this could be getting yourself into shape fitness wise. It could be making sure that you're hiring someone, like you've never hired a salesperson before, or you've never hired a chief operating officer, and you just have been putting it off for a year or 2 years. Another forcing function is taking an outside investor, because when someone else puts money in your company, you have to grow it. You can't, have fun with it anymore. You have to really treat it seriously. So there's ways that you can do this. There's not one single way, but it's how can you bring more accountability and more focus to yourself to make yourself do what you need to do.
That's great. And Aaron, one quick question. What was the biggest mistake you have made in your career, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, I would say one of the biggest mistakes, one of my biggest mistakes was not finding and marrying my wife earlier.
Good one.
Because, I would say I get so much support, an emotional support and motivation from her and my family in a lot of ways. And it's not just ideas. So yeah, I think a lot of people see a family as, it's do I do my career or my family? I have to choose between one or the other, because they just think about it in terms of time. More time with my career, more time with my family. And I don't I say, how can they help each other? So that's kind of one. But I think what you meant was, I mentioned one of my biggest mistakes was the company that we raised millions of dollars and it failed. But I was young. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I think one of the other mistakes I did was not, again, say 10 years ago, I left Salesforce.com, and I just didn't really, I didn't embrace making money fully. I'm going to make money. I like people. I'm naturally more of a helper. I like to give, I like to teach. And, money's never been incredibly important to me. I've always had, enough. I never really wanted to be rich. That wasn't a priority for me. I wanted to create interesting things. I wanted to learn. So think about, I'm not a nonprofit person, but think about people who work in nonprofits, right? They want to help people, but you can't help people the right way or yourself unless you're also making enough money. So I think, yes, embracing your heart and what's important to that, and realizing that money is a very, very powerful enabler to whatever your heart wants to do, whether it's with family, helping nonprofits, just making more money, or making money for your employees so that they can support their families. Like, there's no wrong answer. So that's what I didn't do earlier, was like embrace how important money is and making money, and how to make money for yourself and others. It's at least in the United States, the word sale, there's a lot of negative connotations with sales and money. It doesn't have to be. It's just like, it's important. Like, it's a skill, like the guitar. You can learn to play the guitar. Some people are born, or they're naturals with the guitar, but most people take lessons and they practice. With money, there's a few naturals, but most people just learn how to make money. The people who are good at it, they just tend to learn through experience. It's just like a skill you can learn if you choose to look at it that way.
It's possible to learn how to sell.
It's it's always possible to learn how to sell. Yeah. And how to better enjoy it.
Great. Aaron, I read your book, Predictable Revenue, and I must say our entire sales system is based on your book. So thank you. And my next question is, how do you create a predictable sales system for an e-commerce? How do you manage to create such a system for a business like an online store, or for sellers who sell on marketplace like Mercado Libre?
Yeah. Well, it's all about, we say, the funnel. It's all about, trying things and measuring them. Because I think a lot of businesses, especially small businesses who are online, and small business in general, you try things. You try a campaign, you try Google AdWords, you try an event, and you get some sales, and then you move on to the next thing. And what's missing is more methodical or more scientific experiments to say, let's try this. Let's spend $1,000 or $50 on Google AdWords and measure what we get through to how many sales, including how much profit we get. Because maybe you're selling high margin, maybe high margin products sell, or maybe they don't, maybe only low margin. But versus, hey, let's do a live event, and how does that do? Or let's do organic SEO, or let's try selling to businesses, like bulk orders to businesses. And really carefully, it takes a lot of energy though. That's why part of the problem is, especially when you're busy, to use more of a scientific approach and set up an experiment and measure it and track it. It's a lot more work than people realize, but that's what's missing. And that's what you need to know. If we spend $1,000 here, how many leads do we expect to get? How many will convert to the next step to buy a product? For how much revenue? And what's our gross profit? And is that different than if we're spending on like Facebook ads, or faccia bocca, we call it from Italy, or from bulk orders from businesses, or and just really taking, say, even next year, 2019, and every month, or could it be every 2 weeks, you're going to do an experiment like that. Not trying to do 6 of them at once, which is too much, but just methodically, hey, here's our ideas. Let's just start to experiment through them to see what works best. And to get a sense of, again, if we spend money here, what do we get? And then how many orders and how much profit, so that you have that sense of a predictable, repeatable funnel. If you can't generate leads, it's really hard to grow if you don't have a way to create a predictable sense of leads and sales.
And
Right.
how did you help your mom to scale her business to such a big store like you told
Yeah.
us?
Well, my mom, so on one hand, on the marketing side, I didn't help her at all. The place where I helped her was probably about like 6 or 7 years ago. Let's say I was doing something called this unique genius work, right? Helping people make money and doing what they enjoy, more like personal coaching. And I was talking with my mom, and my mom she needed to make more money because she had some tax problems with the IRS here. So she was in a serious financial problem with a lot of debt, and she was trying to figure out how would she make more money. For 20 years, she'd sold flowers and bulbs, but she was thinking, but I really would love to do travel, like a travel agency, or I'd really love to do, love to do this. So she had these ideas, and because I think she felt either tired of the bulbs and through conversations, I just helped her realize the thing that you are the best at. This is very common, by the way. A lot of times we've done something for a long time. Like I did sales for a long time. And then I was like, I don't want to do sales anymore. I want to do something different. So a lot of this, I've seen this time and again. And so she didn't realize that she'd been doing these flowers and bulbs for 20 years. And she knew so much about it. And that was the place. If she wants to make more money, that's the place to do it. Not in some new travel thing where she doesn't know much about, or a place where she has like a real passion, but she doesn't have any expertise yet. So in this case, when you're looking to make money, I would encourage you to go back to the places where you are a real expert that you may not consider. So even for me, if I want to, I would say an expert in big families and parenting, right? And sales. And so there might be more places than you realize where you are an expert. And when you're an expert and knowing more about that space, it makes it easier for you to pick the right product or design the right product and position it the right way and speak to the customer. And there's so much that comes with that makes it easier for you to make more money in the right field. So that's, once she started on the bulbs, then she herself really figured out how to grow it through Amazon and scale it and everything else. But it's really like just pointing her in the right direction for the easiest place for her to make money.
That's great. That's great. And you told us that your mom had some financial problems, and this brings us to my next question.
So, by the way,
Sorry?
that was she had, it was a forcing function.
Oh, sorry.
She never really tried to make much money. She was divorced from my father, and she was, it wasn't until she had to make money because of this debt that she started to make money. It took her, it was some start time, but it wasn't a forcing function she wanted, because it was having the IRS try to collect money from you is painful, but right, she had no option. So it forced her to do what she could have done before. It's forced her she basically has had to make this much money because she had to, because of the IRS.
And saying this, how do you start a business or an online store? Even, I don't know, how did your mother and our audience that is listening to us right now can scale an e-commerce even without money?
Okay. Well, as I said, I believe it's possible to start a business and grow it with only either very little money or in in little bit of time, whether it's a few hours a week or $100. Does it help to have more time and money? Of course, in some ways. Although when you have too much money and too much time, you just waste it. So if you feel like you're saying, I don't have enough time, I don't have the money, yeah, but a lot of times it's an excuse. So what I would encourage you to do is, not having much money forces you to be more creative with how you're going to use it or make it. Not having much time forces you to be more diligent in how you use it. So first you have to, whatever time you have to block it off on your calendar. If you only have 2 hours a week, you need to set that aside and make sure you use it really well. Doing things in 5 minutes at a time don't work. If you have 4 hours a week, now this could be either to start a business, or it could be you have a business and you're so busy running it, like, I can't I can't breathe. Like, I want to hire someone to help me, but I can't even think about it. So this is where you have to set that time aside in order to figure out what are you going to do and how are you going to make it happen? How are you going to improve the business? And it just means it might take you a few years, a few months, a few years. It might take you a while, but you can do it. So for me, it took me, so from when, say call it spending $100 to start the business, and for 6 years, let's say 6 years, I was making $70,000 a year. And then it went to, $300,000 and then like $700,000, and it's kind of plateaued again. But you just have to be patient and keep taking the steps. If you can even do one thing a day or like a couple things a week, like every Friday, you're just doing something that adds up over time. It does. And there's just so many things you could do without money. It helps, but you can build websites, you can market this, you can do almost anything. You can't hire a senior person, but I guess with you can equity. There's just a lot of ways you can do things or make progress towards goals, even if you don't have much money.
And is outbound and prospecting a solution for, find buyers for your store or your e-commerce without money?
It could be. So for example, the thing I'm famous for, or our business is famous for, is outbound prospecting primarily. We have a business in Brazil called Universidade Previsibilidade, where we teach people and companies how to do sales prospecting. How do you email or call people who don't know you and get an appointment? And for businesses, some of them, not all of them, but remember, businesses tend to have more money than consumers. And there's lots of types of businesses, but if you've only sold to consumers, it might make sense to look at selling to businesses, bulk orders, because businesses have money. They can be repeat buyers. Hopefully they stick around, and they like to buy things usually. So that's a little bit of a different way to sell to them. But it's possible for some of you could take your current business, what you sell, just package it a little differently into more of a bulk and find some businesses to sell to. Now, that involves knowing exactly the kinds of the best businesses who would need your things the most, and having the confidence, or at least the bravery or courage, to go call them or email them or knock on their door to see if they're interested. And then keep doing that time after time until you find a first buyer, which could be one phone call, it could be 10 phone calls, it could be 1,000 phone calls. But some of you could make money with it. Not all of you, but some of you could.
That's amazing. Great tip. And Aaron, a problem we have here in Brazil is we are able to sell, but customer experience is a main issue that we are starting to face and to discuss here in Brazil. So my question is how to motivate your staff to deliver unique experience to buyers and to new clients.
Yeah. So there's a company in the United States I interviewed recently called Twilio. Now, Twilio is about $200 million in revenue and $3 or $4 billion in valuation. It's a public company. It's a well-known company here now. And the CEO there said that they have a practice there called sitting in the shoes of the customer. They want all their employees to know what it feels like to be a customer. So all their employees, and they build online applications. Every employee who starts has to build an online application with their technology. Even the lawyers. Every employee has, it's like, how can they get all their employees to know what it's like to be in the shoes of a customer, to know what the customer doesn't like and what they do like. They talk about the shoes of the customer. They actually, in the offices, they have all these shoes. Like, you don't know someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes. I don't know if that's a US expression or translates, but they have all these shoes hanging in their offices from customers who gave them shoes. They basically would trade shoes. They give them Twilio fancy shoes, and the customer would give them their old stinky shoes, and they'd hang them up as a reminder, how can we walk in the shoes of our customer? And for online merchants, your employees won't know how to deliver a great experience unless they know what it's like to be in the shoes of your customers, to know what it's like to be, how frustrating it is when a package doesn't come, how exciting it is when it does, and there's like an extra little bonus or card inside. How frustrating it is to have to wait 2 days or to not be able to get a question answered. So when they know what that's like, it's easier for them to have empathy for a customer and do the right thing for them, even if it costs you money, or even if it takes more work than you expected. So that's the first step. Or maybe it's a product you sell, and it's whether it's the ordering process, the support process, or the product. If you create your own product, or you have to offer product support, and they get the product and they struggle using it, don't blame the customer for being stupid. You didn't plug it in, but what can you do to make it easier for them to not make a mistake?
Great. And
that's, you got to make it by being in their shoes is how you can know what the kind of a great experience would be like for them.
And it's also a great way to stand out from the competition, right?
Yeah. It's like very few companies have their employees really live what their customers do. Very few. And it shows in the kind of, not only the service that they can give, but also their knowledge of the product or the systems. Right? I'm sure everyone, how often have you tried to either chat with someone in customer support, or you made a phone call and you're talking to someone at this company and you feel like, wow, this person really doesn't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Or they don't know the product, and it makes it more, it's hard.
It's more common than it should.
Yeah. I think companies tend to underinvest, or they hire employee and they rush them just to be on their job, rather than taking the time to try to educate them on the company and to help them experience, to get to know people around the company and other things rather than just their job, and ways that they can go visit customers or pretend to be a customer, or go interview people about the customers and just explore what they need to do to understand the company and how it works in the customers in a more heartfelt way. And then to keep that up over time. Like if everyone's so busy doing their job, then they're not going to have any interest to keep learning or getting better about how to improve the company and improve things for the customers too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And talking about standing out from competition, what's the secret to create a great pitch to stand out in a product listing in a marketplace? You are there looking for a product. You have a lot of sellers offering the same thing. How to stand out on this situation without involving, offering the lowest price?
Right. Yeah. You don't want to offer the lowest price. So here's a couple of suggestions. First, I would find another type of category, either you have friends or not, and just interview the people who are at the top. And most people, if they don't feel like if it's not competitive, people like to help other people. And I guarantee it's sort of like outbound prospecting. If you can find people today. If you reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love to find out about how you're doing so well. You can find people who get advice. In fact, maybe it's some of the events that you guys hold. It's a perfect place. That's one. Just go interview people who already done it. And the second is, the better you know your customer, the easier it is again to write the listing in the way that it resonates with the customer. Like, what does the customer really want? What is interesting to them, and how do you stand out from the alternatives? So for example, interviewing customers, you're really looking for, we call them keywords or key phrases that they're using in their language and they may not know they're saying them. I mean, customers often don't know what they want. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But when you interview them and you're listening to them, you're trying to use like, what is the language? What words are they saying? How do they think? And then find some of those interesting phrases or words and then use those in your writing. So most companies tend to write too much content. And the content is not, it's more just talking about themselves. It's not really written for the reader. So the customer interviews and getting to know them and taking, for example, like a copywriting course is a way to make sure you are writing the right amount of the listing is the right size, and it's a language that is interesting to the customer.
Great. That's a good way to, stand out and don't start a price war. I believe it's the only way, actually.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, I'm assuming there's always customer reviews and testimonials. So if you haven't emphasized those make a huge difference. More reviews, more good reviews, more testimonials, because people like to trust other people. It's really about trust. So there's some people that always want the cheapest thing, right? That's not who you want to, that's not your best customer. Because what you want are the people who want to trust your company and the brand and the product. And so seeing other people, whether it's on video or just that also is a big help. The number of reviews and the star rating. So if you, and I know when you're busy having a business, it's hard to go out and ask people for those reviews and encourage them to do the writing and then gather that and collect it and reuse it. It's work, right? That's when you need some kind of forcing function, perhaps, to make you do it. It's really important. I know it's important, but I'm so tired. I'm too busy. I'll get to it next month. Well, if you've been saying that for a year, it's time to do something different, which might be, you got to find, so it could be as silly as betting a friend, hey, if I don't have X done, if I don't have 5 more reviews on this page, then I'm going to pay you $200 at the end of the month. Or it could be, if I don't have it by then, I'm going to eat a raw egg and video it on Facebook Live. Or, you could have fun with it too, but you gotta make it a priority to do them.
Yes, people are always willing to pay a higher price for a better experience. That's for sure.
The customers you want will be,
yeah. And go on, please.
Well, the customers that just want the cheapest price, they'll go to they'll buy from you today and someone else tomorrow. And then they're usually the hardest customers to deal with, who want the most help. And we say high maintenance here.
Yeah.
They're never happy. They want to pay the least and get the most help.
Have been there.
Yeah.
We faced a lot of problems like this here.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Another thing we didn't do, and this is so important, is just go back and think about, the type of customers that come to you, can you categorize them into groups? Is it moms or dads or single parents or families or businesses? And try to understand which type of customer really is the best. It doesn't mean you have to have one customer. It just means for the ones that you want to try to attract, the ones you want to pursue, which type? Because if you try to pursue everybody, your writing, your listings, they won't resonate as well as if you pick one customer or like that type, like the mom with a big family, and you're speaking right to her. And that's when it makes it easier to sell, plus at a higher price, and they're happier. Just focusing on certain types of customers are the best for you, the most profitable, who get the most value, who enjoy your products the most.
Great. Aaron, we talked a lot about B2C, e-commerce, and what's the difference in selling in a B2C marketing and a B2B for the seller? I have the B2B target and I have the B2C target. What's the difference for the seller?
That's a great question. There's really probably one main significant difference. The main significant difference is when you're selling to consumers, most consumers are impulse driven. They're like, hey, I want this thing. I'm going to buy it. Okay, I bought it. Now, I might check with my spouse, wife or husband, but maybe not. And maybe it's a good decision or maybe it's not. But I just kind of want it. Now, for businesses, some businesses, there are people who might buy like consumers. I need to buy 2 chairs for my business. But a lot of businesses, when you start to sell bigger packages, like several $100s or several $1,000s or several, $10,000 or $20,000, as at some point you have more than one person who has to get involved with buying. So the main difference is in businesses, when you have more than one person, you have 2 or 3 people or maybe even more involved in buying your stuff. It means that you have to realize it takes multiple steps to sell it can take multiple steps to sell to a business. It means you have to be prepared to be following up for days or usually probably weeks or months, because they're not just going to see it and buy it. And so you have to be able to reach out and say, hey, did you see this? Are you interested? Was there a problem? And just keep reaching out to them. So because it takes multiple steps. That also means when let's just say there's 2 people. Let's say that there's a buyer. Like, here's the person who wants your thing. I'm a software programmer and I want to buy really fancy monitors. Okay, but I need approval from my boss. I need approval from the CTO. And so your products and in your sales process, which just means if you're new to it, what you talk about on the phone or email to your prospects means you have to speak to that buyer, the software programmer, but you also have to be prepared to speak to the boss, the person who can write the check, the person with the money, in ways that mean something to them. And they usually want to see how this is going to save them money or make them money or reduce risk in some way. Like if it reduces the risk of people getting hurt. It's all about money. So it means you have to end up learning how to be more comfortable talking about money, which can be talking about budgets. It could be showing them how to make money, how this will make them money or save them money. And again, that idea of embracing sales. How do you embrace the idea of making money, of making yourself money, making your team money, making your customers money? Because that is, in a business, what it usually ends up as. It's about money. And one of the people you're dealing with is usually the money person who has to decide yes or no. And they don't really care about how nice you are. Really, they might, but you may never meet them. They may just say, show me the spreadsheet. So in essence, I would again, don't get caught into the fear people gets caught up in is, well, I've already emailed them 3 times and I don't want to bother them. Or I've already met with them 2 times. I don't want to bother them. Shouldn't they buy it by now? No, don't. You have to keep being pleasantly persistent to see it through to the end. You're not going to bother them unless you're just an annoying person. If you're friendly, it's not going to bother them. I'll give you one example here at home. I have a daughter that she wants a new cell phone. And she will just be like, I want a cell phone. 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 Where's my new cell phone? How do I get it? How do I get it? Right? It's annoying the way she does it. But I tell her you should, keep following it. But if she said something like, hey, Dad, is there any news on the cell phone? Or do you have a few minutes to talk about ideas and how I can get a new phone? I'd be a lot more happy to talk to her about it. It's not annoying. So it's not the amount of follow-up you do. It's the way you do the follow-up. Make sure you do at least, say, 10 or 20 follow-ups, whether it's phone calls or emails, and do it in a way that it's pleasantly persistent and you will not annoy them.
Wow, that's great. I am going to use this for sure.
I gotta show this to my daughter.
Maybe I got a new cell phone. I don't know. And Aaron, you teaches us a lot of techniques and strategies. And this is my last question. Where people can learn more from predictable methodology and learn more from you?
Yeah. Well, the best place to start are with the books. And for e-commerce sellers, really the best book for you would be the Hipercrescimento book In the United States, it's called from impossible to inevitable. But in Brazil, in Portuguese, it's hipercrescimento. So that's the best place to start. If sales and salespeople and prospecting is your thing that you really want to find out about, the best book is the Receita Previsível book. So that's the prospecting book. The hipercrescimento is the growth book. How do I make more money? How do I grow? And a lot of useful lessons for anyone there. And I really think that it starts with deciding, hey, how important is this? Like, how dedicated am I to changing myself or my business to grow? How far will I go to do it? You don't need to sacrifice your family. You don't need to sacrifice your health, but you might have to sacrifice your, habits, your bad habits, and create some new ones in order to think that way. So I believe both books are linked on our website, Universidade Previsibilidade. Start with hipercrescimento. And if you really want to learn about sales after that, Receita Previsível.
Aaron, thank you so much for your time. I had a great time talking with you, and I am sure our audience have enjoyed it as well. And I would like to give you open space to talk to our audience who is watching us right now. And that's it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. And just my last thought is, and we'll see if my wife comes in here in a minute, is, and I said it before and I'll say it again, you can make more money and have a better family, right, at the same time. If you have kids or a relationship, you don't want your business to detract from your family or vice versa. So how can you find ways to have them complement each other? So I just really believe too that when you have a family or friends that support you, it makes it much easier in so many ways to be successful too. And when you're successful, you can go back and how do you help your family? I haven't done it for a while, but I do when I can. I actually take a kid or two on business trips with me if I do like a talk. Or one of the things that we're going to do in the United States in 2020 is have a business conference that's friendly for families. There's always a way to do it. So it goes by fast. But don't ignore your family completely while you're trying to make money for your family, because they need the support, financial support, but they need you as well.